As civilization progressed, the family became less important and the overall community much more important. And for Africans that come from a communal society, it's very, very difficult to distinguish one's family from one's community. And that is where the African tradition, parts with the so-called Western tradition, which is built on individuality. Now, individuality is a death sentence for African people, in our opinion. It does not work and will not work because of the peculiar nature of the African in America. Singled out, no doubt about it, in the Constitution as 3/5 of a person, and then kept in shadow for 300 years. Now, no other group has had that experience in the Americas. Thus, that sets African people apart. And the whole struggle for African liberation in America has always been a communal struggle. From the times of colonial America through the period of slavery, through the period of liberation during the Civil War, after the Civil War, and beyond during the apartheid stage up until the Lyndon Johnson appeared with his Civil Rights Acts. That apartheid started to be officially loosened on the African in America. But what happened to the African was when the African moved from a communal or a community focus where people worked together, had a great civil rights struggle across America based upon people. People marched, Fannie Lou Hamers and various others, and they did not get much out of this liberation struggle. In fact, they died poor. But the people that came after them were partially integrated into society, at least in an economic sense, and were able to go into various realms of corporate America and to better paying jobs. Thus came housing, thus came better education, etc. But unfortunately, many of those people did not give back to community. They moved out of the community and moved on to other places, and thus the community itself was left there as urban ghettos. And blight appeared, etc. And then, of course, came the drug epidemics of the 80s, which is deliberately put upon African communities from South Central Los Angeles to Harlem, to parts of Atlanta, to parts of Chicago, the south side, west side of Chicago, and various other urban settings. Thus, you came with a lost generation. Now, we're going back 30 years ago, virtually a very long time. But this is where the dismantling started. And those that went into the realm, the rigors of corporate America were there. And then various programs opened up, such as affirmative action, to make sure that some of those slots were available. People took advantage of those, and income levels moved up. Of course, people also moved to suburbia, like their quote-unquote white brethren, for a process called upward mobility. But upward mobility stopped, and that was the end of that ticker, as from the current news, 50 schools closed in the city of Chicago. Elementary schools, I think about 49 of those, and one high school. And that's caused by dislocation of people when some of the urban housing, Cabrini Green, etc., were destroyed. People were displaced and moved out of the city of Chicago to smaller communities. Thus, the Chicago schools were allowed to set adrift. That was deliberate. Now they're closed, jobs are lost. Schools that had anchored communities for a very long time will no longer be there anymore. Under the current Mayor Emanuel, who has done more to destroy the progress of African American people than the Klan and Mayor Daley and Ronald Reagan and the rest of the Republican Party combined. So it is that sorry backdrop that we have. That President Obama arrives in Atlanta in the rain, talking about to young African American males about personal responsibility. Yes, personal responsibility is there, family is there, but community is much more important. And that's the message they should have gotten out of his speech. Some took to the so-called tough love aspects there, the criticism of African American farmers departing the family, but later President Obama said in his own speech that some people were not at home with their families for the simple reason that due to socio-economic conditions, they were not allowed to be there. And that's virtually what happened to his father, but it was a little different situation. He went back to the continent and did not reappear. But those things happen, and they happen more often now in the greater society. There are more single women raising children today than there have been in the history of this country. And part of that adds to the new social dynamic, the outsourcing, insourcing, the ability of men to get jobs in the first instance, whether they be African Americans or they be members of the white working class, etc. Those jobs simply are not there. The computer giant HP, Hewlett Packard, is laying off about 20,000 more workers this year. So when you see that type of dislocation, it does affect the family, just as violence in wars, etc., on football fields, those also contribute to what they call domestic violence. So the whole thing is not an element of various static things. They are dynamic things that continue to move on in the American society. You cannot isolate African American progress or regression from the rest of the American society. President Obama made that very, very clear. So you take with it the message of Morehouse and move forward. And other items today had an election in Los Angeles. The winner there was Garcetti. He won the election, and the polls had shown prior to that he was in a very good position to win. There was no doubt about his ability to win that particular election because he was able to get the money. He carried the West Side, he carried the Valley. Wendy Gruhl, on the other hand, was a progressive, but there was a schism going on there. Garcetti went to Iowa and supported Barack Obama, then a senator from Illinois. Wendy Gruhl supported Hillary the Monster Clinton. And of course Axelrod and some people went there. It was a different type of election where they got those historic sides out, the West Side, the Valley. Older white people voted for Garcetti. Garcetti is of Italian, Mexican heritage. His mother is Jewish, therefore he's of the Jewish faith. But that's only the start of the story. Wendy Gruhl received support from various unions. And that was one of the things that doomed her campaign with the types of people that came out there. So that is a situation, no doubt about that, that hurt her, and also was let's see. Well, the temperatures weren't 110 degrees. I was looking at that. And in terms of the workforce here, some things that the current mayor done to scale back services, reduce the workforce by 5,300 positions. But there is 5.5% raise coming due on January the 1st. The contract has already been, as they say, negotiated, so nothing Garcetti can even do about that. So things are already set. And also in this particular schism here, the parts that she carried, of course, was South Central Los Angeles and South LA. Those are followers of O.J. Simpson in that particular area. So those are the kinds of things that this election was. It was a typical, I guess we'd say, LA election going back to Mayor Yorty, in the sense that older white people decided this election. But the faces changed, no doubt about that. A lot of money spent, over $30 million there. So the city will go on, and Garcetti is a fellow that's a sort of an interesting situation. He'll have a lot of things he'll have to do. He took 54% of the vote. Basically, as the polls were correct, and when he grew 46% of the vote, the 19% turnout was there. So basically, let's see, about 345,000 ballots were cast in this election. There, let's see, a new city attorney moves forward there, and new and a controller, Goppin, from Century City Lawyers. So there were some changes there in the election, and a number of council positions there were basically about the same. Garcetti had represented Hollywood, Silver Lake, and Echo Park for 12 years. And as we said before, he did well on the west side in the San Fernando Valley there. And of course the south side, Winnie Grew got that because she was part of the administration of the late legend Tom Bradley. So thus this election, some things were typical of LA, some things were not typical of LA, and the employees at the Department of Water and Power were one of the basic voting blocks for Wendy Grew. How will they fare will be questions we'll have to look at. And as we go out and back to the rest of Morehouse, look very briefly here at a hearing. This is before Darrell Issa. Issa is the alarm king. That's what made him millions of dollars. He journeyed from Ohio to California and sold car alarms. He used to do the commercials himself. But nonetheless, he had a hearing today, and Ms. Lerner from the IRS was there. She made an opening statement, and then she took the fifth. And Issa was saying she waived the fifth. That is actually not true. She didn't waive her rights as far as that is concerned, period. And according to Stan Brand, a brief introductory to her former remarks and invoking the privilege as a waiver. He's a Washington lawyer and a general counsel for the House of Representatives from 76 to 83. And another professor from Regent University School of Law. Nonetheless, for one, this is Congress and not a courtroom. There's no doubt about that. So this drama will go on. He will try to cite it for contempt of Congress. It will not work out. So the drama goes on there with the Republicans and their hearings. How many people are paying attention? We'll have that on Friday Jobber and the week that was. On Sunday, we'll have some special programming. President Obama will journey to Oklahoma City and look at the devastation there and speak there. So he will be doing that, and we will be covering that also. And also on the weekend, we'll have Numbers Man here on Blog Talk. And over on Spreaker, we'll have economic news coming up on Thursday. That's today, later today. We'll have that out. So we go out, and as the Port Laureate of Newark, New Jersey, that hails from South Central Los Angeles, Bill L. Graham would say, peace out. Good day.
Hello, Morehouse. Well, thank you, everybody. Please be seated. I love you back. That is why I'm here. I have to say that it is one of the great honors of my life to be able to address this gathering here today. I want to thank Dr. Wilson for his outstanding leadership and the Board of Trustees. We have Congressman Cedric Richmond and Sanford Bishop, both proud alumni of this school. as well as Congress.